Happy Sunday Eve. Tonight's meditation is going to focus on ways to mindfully approach adversity. When we experience challenges, we typically go into not necessarily fight or flight, but a typical we go into our patterns, the ways that we deal with things. Sometimes we speed up when it can be really helpful to slow down. So I'll invite you to take a mindful stance, whether that's standing, whether it's sitting, lying down, whatever is most helpful to foster mindful awareness for you, and to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. And with this next inhale, being here in this moment, noticing the body in this space, noticing its sensations, the sounds that it's experiencing. When the mind wanders, anytime throughout this meditation, just when you can, and you notice that the mind has wandered, gently guide it back. Taking this time to really flex that attentional muscle to come back. This is part of one of the things that can be helpful when we're experiencing some sort of challenge. The coming back. It's not uncommon for those times for us to speed up or to begin to analyze what this adversity or challenge means, what it will be like in the future, what we should have done in the past. And while those thought processes can help keep ourselves distracted and moving, they don't necessarily help us to be with ourselves right now. And being with ourselves in those times can be really important because it's in the present that we have the data. If we listen in or we look for it, that can help us guide what to do or what not to do. So I want to invite you to think about a challenge or some adversity you faced recently, keeping this in the 6 or 7 range of intensity on a scale of 0 being not intense at all and 10 being the most intense you've experienced. And also being mindful to care for yourself. So if you're noticing and conjuring or thinking about this challenge and it begins to feel too overwhelming, come back to listen in to what it is that you need. And what I guide you to do is not going to be necessarily what is going to be best for you. Trusting yourself. And Noticing reactions in the body as you think or bring to your mind's eye this challenge. You might notice that the mind is either drawn to thinking about this, or it wants to avoid, or some range in between. I invite you to observe the way that you initially react to the challenge. This may be different given the circumstances, and we generally have a response home, sort of all things equal. I most likely will respond like ... For me, it's overwhelm. Cognitively feeling overwhelmed, which leads to some level of shutdown or avoidance. For others, they might experience anger, fear, sadness, shame. And again, there'll be some variation given the circumstance. Just noticing for you what comes up as that reaction most often. Staying with the body as you can and bringing yourself back to it when the mind wanders. You might notice that another response to challenges and adversity is to, not too long after the initial response, is to say why. So notice that the mind wants to know. And although there can be some utility in exploring how things came to be, often this why leads to judgment. It also wants some level of certainty. And so it can distract from the process of being with yourself when you really need you the most. And I want to invite you to be curious about the stories that the mind engages in, creates or fosters or increases, strengthens with particular challenges and adversity. Similarly to our reaction and like the home of our response, we have the typical stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and what circumstances and challenges mean about us and about those in our lives. And I invite you in this moment, or a practice of noticing the stories and imagining that if those stories were attached to us with hooks, that you're mindfully noticing them and disconnecting them. allowing what is happening in the present to be just about the present. Bringing your attention back to the body, noticing if any muscle tension has crept in and letting it go. And offering yourself some compassion. Maybe it's a gentle hand to the heart. When we're experiencing something challenging, we don't really need the whys or the stories. We don't need that automatic response other than to just provide some information. We do usually need to be there for ourselves, and it is often when we are most ready to abandon ourselves. Noticing any reactions you might have to the self-compassion gesture. We can be really uncomfortable with self-compassion. So just to notice. And to practice coming back to self, noticing reactions, emotional, cognitive thoughts, our stories, and the ways that we're trying to make sense and to know certainly all of our experiences. And so taking a moment just to ground back here in the present without the mind's eye or awareness of these processes. And checking in with where the body's coming in contact with the space around it. And noticing the breath as it rises and falls. It's a really long bell. So a little bit longer today, and tomorrow's post will also follow up with how we approach adversity and challenges mindfully. This is not a perfect process by any means. It certainly is a practice. So I hope that it is helpful as you begin a new week. All right, take care.